It somehow just got worse for the New York Rangers. After another ugly and poor performance against the New Jersey Devils, we have some shocking comments from Captain Jacob Trouba. Chris Drury is now in the hot seat. And could Peter Laviolette be making his way out of New York? We're going to break it all down in this episode of Rangers Digest. But before we get to that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 70% of you who watch these videos are not actually subscribed to the channel. So if you want to do yourself a favor, it's free and you get to stay up to date with everything New York Rangers. So hit that subscribe button, and shout out to the 3,500 of you who are subscribed to the channel. Your support has been unbelievable, and I appreciate every single one of you following me on this ride of this very interesting New York Rangers season this year. But let's dive right into it. We have some interesting reports. We have some shocking comments. And again, there's a couple guys in terms of management and coaching that could be on the hot seat, especially put there by fans. But this is from Vince Mercogliano, and this was post-game, and I thought this was very interesting. And this is kind of where I've been leaning the last couple of days, because I thought this was very puzzling now that we've had maybe a week to sit on things. But he said, from what I'm hearing from sources, a trade is going to be very difficult to pull off at this stage. And I mean, if you look at the salary that Chris Drury is trying to throw around the league, it's going to be very difficult to put a trade together. Now, if they want to trade Chris Kreider, which again, I've been saying the last couple of days, I've been saying for the last week, probably not a great idea. I don't think you do that again. He was the only guy who scored last night, and we'll get into the game last night because that was quite horrible. Again, there was really no words for it, but a poor excuse for a performance. But I thought that was very interesting. He continued to break down, obviously, the loss to the Devils and that Shesterkin wasn't on his game, which he hasn't been, and obviously the lack of urgency. And I think this is very interesting. Chris Drury came out last week and said, hey, we want to shake things up. These are two guys who are available. Apparently, it shook the locker room. Nobody in the locker room liked it. There's people around the league that are paying attention to this stuff now. Maybe they don't want to come to New York. There's a lot of fallout from this, and I think it's very interesting. And I think that it's going to be very difficult to make a trade at this stage in the season. A lot of teams are up against the cap, or they're making plans if they have some injuries, to be cap compliant. So I think it's going to be very difficult to pull off a trade at this point in time. And I think that's unfortunate because you watched them play last night. It probably should have been 6-0 Devils after the first period, honestly. Like, a absolutely poor performance. And, we don't really know what's next for this team. Like, I don't know what's going to galvanize this team. You can't fire the coach. I've been saying that as well the last couple of days, and I think a lot of people have been pointing their finger at Chris Drury, that Chris Drury is the next guy to go. You can't fire the coach. It's not Peter Laviolette. I mean, this core has had 3 coaches at this point, and 3 really good coaches. Gerard Gallant is a great coach, right? He serves a purpose in the league. Peter Laviolette has obviously served a purpose in the league. He is a Stanley Cup champion. These guys are good coaches. They know how to get things out of players. But, the players got to play for you as well. And it looks like some of these players have given up at some point. Like, the last couple of games, some of them have just almost given up on the season. The Montreal game was great, but again, it was against a lesser opponent. I was saying that you have to take things out of this game and continue to roll. They did none of that last night against the New Jersey Devils. It was terrible performance. But from Phil Kosher, feels to me like this Rangers team needs another Gabrick for Brassard, Dorsett, and more type of trades, a wholesale culture change. And that could be what they're looking to do at this point. I don't know if you get better in season if you do that. It's going to be very difficult to make a trade like I just mentioned, but 6 losses in the last 7 games for the Rangers. Your only win in the last 7 games coming against the Montreal Canadiens, who are second last in the entire National Hockey League. And again, lost to the Boston Bruins the next night. They're not looking good. The Rangers need to piece this together. It is not looking promising right now. They have to get things going. There are plenty of issues. This is from Johnny Lazarus as well. There are plenty of issues with this team, but there are no answers. And I think that's the sentiment of fans right now. This is from Boomer as well. Horrendous loss to the Devils tonight. There are no words to describe the level of disgust with the New York Rangers. And again, I think a lot of Rangers fans are feeling this way. Disgust, right? Like, how are you putting out these performances? How are we, spending our time watching these poor performances? Either you want to be here or you don't. Coach, player, and GMs are the ones responsible. Something is way off. The time is now to save the season. And I think that last part is exactly it. If you do not do something to shake things up right now, this season will be lost. It will be. The way they are playing, they are slowly falling out of a playoff spot. They have to do something. It doesn't even necessarily need to be a trade. I don't know if it's firing the coach. Firing the coach might work. Like the Edmonton Oilers last year. I think that, their coach at the time was a good coach, and I think that he'll coach in the NHL again. But when you look at this Rangers team, I just don't think it's the coach. I don't. I think it's the core group of players. I think they've been here for long enough that they have to get it together. They're not doing that. Some of them look like they've given up on the season. If you don't do something right now to galvanize this group, whether it's a trade, whether it's firing the coach, whatever you want it to be, this is going to be a long season. They might fall out of the playoffs or they might hang around, but then you're going to get, kicked out in the first round, maybe the second round, right? Just the way they're playing. And we'll get into the style of play now too. If you look at the impact chart, everyone was a negative impact last night. It was not good. Not, any one player was really, really good. Maybe you could look at Cooley again. Maybe you could look at Trocheck. I mean, Zibanejad's up there as well, but, some of this is power play. But when you look at Panarin, Hedl, and Lafreniere, they've been outchanced 11 and a bit to 3 and a bit when on the ice together, and that is from Natural Stat Trick. They've been on the ice for 3 minutes and 52 seconds. So they're 5-on-5 play, any line combination, they're getting outchanced like crazy this season. Their 5-on-5 play, I should correct myself actually. The original third line of Cooley, Hedl, and Kakko were brilliant 5-on-5. So maybe we take a look at putting that back together. But their 5-on-5 play outside of that has been horrendous. How are you going to win in the playoffs if you're not winning your 5-on-5 minutes? How are you ever going to win in the playoffs if you're not playing physical? It's not going to work. So you have to correct those two things. If you do not correct those two things right now, this could be a lost season. So, and that is a shame because you don't have to play for the fans. You don't even have to play for your teammates. Play for a guy like Sam Rosen, right? Like, this is his final season, a legendary broadcaster. Play for a guy like that. So at least he has an opportunity to call a Stanley Cup final game in his last season, right? Because this team, on paper, should be good enough to get there. But they're not playing that way. You got to win your 5-on-5 minutes. Again, the only goal they scored last night was a power play goal. It's Kreider again. He's the one who's scoring the goals, right? I guess this season he's put together a pretty decent season. But they have to correct that. Their 5-on-5 player getting outplayed all over the ice, and it's just something you got to clean up. And again, Chris Kreider, like I mentioned, the only goal last night, he was pretty good. He's had a decent season again offensively. I don't think you trade this player. I don't think it makes sense. I think there's other players in this team that should go first. Obviously, the salary cap and the no movement clauses makes things difficult, but I think he's the first one to go. But after last night's game, following that poor performance, we have some interesting comments from Kreider and obviously the captain, Jacob Trouba. Jacob Trouba went on to say, things haven't been going how we've wanted to lately. Right now, these aren't fun times to go through, but like I said, these are where teams get built. You've got to find your way through adversity to get to the good stuff. I don't even know if this is adversity. Like, I'm going to get to it in a second. I'll bring it up right now because this is exactly what I was going to say. And I totally agree with Chris Kreider here. I think we're finding different ways to lose right now as opposed to finding different ways to win. And to go back to what Jacob Trouba said, it's like, yes, it is adversity because you have to break through and you have to continue to play well and find your game. But you guys are like, the Rangers are finding ways to lose right now, right? Like, I don't even know if it is adversity. They're doing it to themselves. They have to find a way. It's not like they're battling a bunch of injuries or anything like that. Like, they got to find a way to get their game back here. So in a way, yes, it is adversity, but they're finding ways to lose, I think, rather than getting it done. So I'm not sure this, I think, if you can galvanize your group and get through this, yes, this is where teams do get built. You can build up that confidence and continue on a hot streak. But this core group of players they've been together for quite a long time already at this point. So I think Rangers fans are a little bit sick of stuff like this when Jacob Trouba says stuff like this. And I think they just want the team to get it together and play well. And I think there's still potential there. There is. It's a mental shift that has to happen. I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know if it's a fight at this point. They called up Rempe already at one point. So that didn't really make a difference. Is it firing the coach? I really don't think that's the answer personally. I don't. And then, maybe it is a shakeup, but I don't think it should include Chris Kreider. That's just my personal thoughts, and it's going to be very difficult to make a trade like that. But there's a lot of teams around the league that could use a top-line defenseman, or they would think that Jacob Trouba is a top-line defenseman and could be on their team. So I think that's very interesting. But let me know in the comments what you thought of last night's loss. I thought it could have been 6-0 after the first period. It was a poor performance. Shesterkin's not his best game. That was one of the only games in the last little bit where they completely outshot a team, right? It's usually the opposite. So they actually played better in that way, but obviously the goaltending wasn't there. It could have been 6-0. Performance wasn't there. But let me know in the comments what you think, and if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers.